There's much going on in the world these days, but maybe the one thing that affected me the most is news of the shooting death of Ahmaud Arbery in Brunswick, Georgia, earlier this year. Ahmaud Arbery was a 25-year-old black man who was out jogging in his neighborhood. He was shot and killed by a white father and son who tracked him down in their pickup. They say that they believe that he may have been a person that committed a robbery in their area, so they wanted to make a citizen's arrest. The news of the shooting hit the news maybe a week or two ago when a video of it was released. But that's not when the shooting occurred. The shooting happened 2 months ago, and the men that killed this young black man, had not been arrested or charged with anything. It was only when the story hit the news and became one of national interest that local authorities took real action. Only now, on Mother's Day, over 2.5 months after the shooting occurred, has the local Attorney General asked for a federal investigation into it. This story breaks my heart, and sadly, this story is not unique. As I read a little bit from supporters of the father and son, I read the statement that the father and son were God-fearing men. Now, I don't know the men at all, obviously, and I can't argue at all with the statement that they fear God. But what speaks out to me is that I don't believe that they know God's heart. I don't believe they understand what Jesus taught, or what he told us was one of the 2 most important commandments for us to follow. Let me turn to Matthew chapter 22, verses 35 to 40, where the Pharisees asked a question of Jesus. It reads as follows. One of them, an expert in law, tested him with this question, "Teacher, what is the greatest commandment in the law?" Jesus replied, "Love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your mind. This is the first and greatest commandment, and the second is like it. Love your neighbor as yourself. All the law and prophets hang on these 2 commandments." Now, what Jesus is calling us to do, in addition to loving or fearing God, is to love our neighbor as ourselves. In this particular shooting, the person killed was actually a neighbor from the same neighborhood. But what Jesus means is that we are to love everyone as we love ourselves, that we are to take care of them as we take care of ourselves and our family. We can't pass judgment on another person because they are different than we are. In this case, it was a person of a different color. But that applies to people of different cultures, religions, sexual orientations, or beliefs. We are told by Jesus that we are to love them all as we love ourselves. And this isn't trivial. It's not a secondary thing that Jesus listed after a long list of other laws. What Jesus specifically says is that all the law and prophets hang on these 2 commandments. And there's no doubt of what he's saying here, no matter what version of the Bible you prefer. In the King James Bible, it says, "On these 2 commandments hang all the laws and the prophets." So, that command to love our neighbor as ourselves is anything but secondary, and you can't even list it among all the other laws, because Jesus held it out there up front for us. It's core. It is one of the 2 commandments on which everything else hangs. In other words, if we do not love God with all that we are, and if we do not love our neighbor as much as we love ourselves, then we're not following what God asks of us. By loving our neighbor, we do not chase them down and kill them. We also do not pick out someone because they do not look like they fit in our neighborhood. Let me close with a quote that I've written to a few times, and I think it sums up much of the evil that occurs in the world these days. The quote is from an author by the name of Tracy Kidder, and he wrote a book called Mountains Beyond Mountains, The Quest for Dr. Paul Farmer a man who would cure the world. And the quote is simple. It's as follows: "The idea that some lives matter less is the root of all that is wrong with the world." I think if we considered all lives to have the same value as our own children's lives, then our world would be vastly different from what it is today. Not only that, if we, as Christians, exhibited this attitude clearly to the rest of the world, I think so much more people would flock to Christianity and want to follow Jesus and see what this is all about. Because guess what? That type of love for all, it is what God is asking of us. And why is He asking that? Because we are all His children. What I also want to suggest and leave with you is a song called "Let There Be Peace on Earth." I ran into this version recently and it was recorded way back in 1993. And I'll post that under this video. So if you have a chance, please have a listen. Thank you, and we'll talk soon.